months ago, I did a video about some chronic health issues I am experiencing as a result of pushing past my limits in a few ways over these past several years, having spent a lifetime of prioritizing what other people wanted for me instead of what I wanted for myself. Really took a toll. You know, I struggled with anxiety and depression from high school into adulthood, and then more recently that translated into some chronic health, some physical health issues. So I wanted to do an update and circle back because it's been a while and I've been on some pretty intense self-care and self-healing rituals, and I can say I'm feeling so much better. I'm finally sleeping better. I've been really plagued by insomnia for the past 2-3 years. I learned about cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, which is very different than other forms of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And there's a lot of resources and information online. I found some podcasts that have really helped me think about sleep differently. I also can tell that my mental capacity is greatly improved. I feel so much less brain fog. I have so much more energy. I haven't gotten stuck in a cycle of depression or like a depressive spiral for a couple months now, which is pretty major because, again, over these last few years, especially after going through some real tough stuff in the early part of 2021, I just have found that I keep falling into this depression cycle of feeling better for a little while and then having a period of depression and feeling better for a little while and having a period of depression. And now I've been absent of that for the last 2 months. I have really had to slow down to deal with my health stuff, and I can actually feel that I'm like ramping up in some ways. My life is becoming much more full. I'm having the energy to engage with opportunities and develop relationships and get embedded within my community. So again, I wanted to share some of the things that have been working for me because I know that the health condition I was experiencing, which is called many different things, which I think is unhelpful. Sometimes it's called adrenal fatigue. Sometimes it's called chronic fatigue syndrome. Sometimes it's called HPA axis dysfunction, which is speaking to the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and the adrenals. I always have to HPA, hypothalamus, pituitary gland, and the adrenals. But essentially, it's a physical response to too much chronic stress and too much chronic overwhelm. That's why those experiences are so common, because we live in a culture where many of us are chronically stressed to the point of illness. Basically, my body stopped knowing when to produce cortisol and how to metabolize cortisol within my system. Cortisol is energy. Cortisol is a hormone that helps us get things done. As a part of this experience, I've gone through 2 rounds of testing where I tested blood, saliva, and urine and got these results that showed how my cortisol levels function throughout the day. In a healthy person, we should have a boost in the morning to wake us up, to get us going, to get us moving throughout our day, and then it should slowly deteriorate. It should slowly decrease into the evening so that, you know, we have less energy before we go to bed, and that helps our body move into a sleep cycle. So this is the natural rhythm that our bodies should be doing for us when we're healthy, when we're functioning well. The body knows how to, again, release the hormones that give us the energy we need when we need it. What happened for me, and is common for a lot of other people who have a similar experience, is my body became so constantly stressed during a very specific time period. I remember when I really pushed myself over the threshold, and because I stayed in that way too heightened, way too traumatic, way too stressful situation for such a prolonged period of time, my body lost the capacity to follow a natural rhythm. My body became so stressed that I totally stopped sleeping. I was heightened all the time. It didn't matter what time of day or night it was. My fight, flight, freeze response was activated. And so my body was producing cortisol regardless of the time of day. How I think of it is like my body forgot what it was supposed to do. And, you know, it's trying to keep me safe because I'm physiologically activated. I'm feeling like there's a threat that's constantly around. And so my body is producing a lot of cortisol, and, you know, I'm always kind of ready to fight, flight, freeze if I need to. But again, the impact of that is that the physiology of the body is impacted on a long-term basis. I just did a second round of testing about a month or 2 ago, and I can see that like my levels are a little bit better. I can see that my body is producing slightly more cortisol in the daytime to get me moving and slightly less in the evening to get me resting, but it's not where it should be quite yet. And I am using a whole lot of supplements. That's been one of the biggest treatment options I've turned to. I've worked with now 2 different functional medicinists just to get some different opinions and some different treatment options. And so that's who I've worked with to do these tests. And then they've been helping me choose what kind of natural supplements will help boost my energy. You know, that's what's helpful about those kinds of comprehensive tests, is that they can show me like, where am I deficient in a particular nutrient, where am I deficient in a particular hormone, how can we use supplements to help the body re-regulate, to help the body get back into a baseline level of being okay and feeling okay. So I take a lot of pills every single day right now. There's a couple I take first thing in the morning to get my energy up and going, and then I kind of take throughout the day. You can see I've made it through a bunch of them, but I've still got a few more to continue taking throughout the day. What I'm feeding myself and how I'm giving my body the nutrients it needs has been really helpful in this recovery process. It's been really important in this recovery process. I started making smoothies over the summer, and I love that as a way to get my body some nutritious foods first thing. I sometimes struggle to eat breakfast. I sometimes don't get hungry until a bit later, or like the act of chewing can feel like too cumbersome or something like that. So I found that smoothies have been a really nice and easy way for me to just like get a whole bunch of fruit, get a whole bunch of vegetables going first thing in the morning. I don't have to chew. I don't have to like work too hard. It becomes sort of part of my like morning ritual, you know. I found that I like to get up and I like to kind of tidy my space and get my space ready for the day, wash dishes from the day and the night before, prepare my coffee, prepare my little smoothie, get all my supplements ready to get going. I'm finding that it's really important for me to consciously set the tone for my day too. You know, in my old life, when I was working full time for organizations, I would just like get up and start working, right? Like, especially when I was a student at the same time, sometimes I would like wake up early to finish some homework assignments and then go to work. And, you know, I was just like immediately using my brain and immediately sort of going outside of my body to check email and do these readings and get going to work. And as somebody who has chronically struggled with anxiety, that absolutely feeds my anxiety. So now what I'm finding in the privilege of this slower life that I'm building for myself, that I'm consciously creating for myself, I find that I do a lot better when I don't do any of that for really honestly like the first 3 to 4 hours when I'm awake. You know, I take my time, I do like the slow tidy, I get my things ready, and then I really enjoy going outside first thing in the park across the street from where I live, especially when it's nice and sunny or warm enough to walk barefoot. I love that as like an initial start to my day, to just like be in the open air, feel the grass under my feet, be with the trees, hear the sounds of nature. It gives me kind of a sense of spaciousness to start my day, and it starts me from a much more like a nature-based, centered in my human experience place than, you know, if I jump into email, if I jump on social media, that sends me in a very different emotional, physical, mental place. I find that I need to like protect myself from those things a bit more, because my anxiety, my stress is activated in social media and email and online spaces in a way that it is not activated when I'm just by myself and with nature. Related to this, I also find that it's really important that I start my day with like doing the ritual stuff that I would do if I was actually going to work in an office or something like that, like getting up and washing my face and doing my hair. I have like a spray bottle I use because I don't shower every day. Choosing my clothes for the day. You know, I like work from home right now, so even if I'm not going anywhere, even if I have no plans to see anybody, I found that it is really helpful to have like kind of a clear separation between sleep time, daytime, nighttime. So making sure that I'm not hanging out all day in my pajamas, that can kind of trigger a more depressive experience for me too, of just like low energy, not doing anything. I also find it really helpful, especially after spending time outside, to sit for a bit and sit with myself and journal. I try not to be super rigid about any of my routines because that can just, oh, there's bees trying to come in my house. Why are you trying to come in? No, go away. Go away. I don't know what's going on right now. I thought it was like, we've gone past the freeze, so I thought the bees would be gone for the season. But yesterday there were so many bees that just were hanging out in the front of my house, and I had to catch and release like 4 different bees. Ugh. Anyways, yeah, I try not to be too rigid with any of my routines because that can also activate stress and anxiety for me if I feel like there's things that I have to do, or that I'm like letting myself down or something if I don't do things in an exact kind of way. So all of these routines are flexible, and I don't force myself to do all of them. I mean, the supplements I take every day, but the other pieces, like, I allow myself some flexibility. But I do find that starting from a place of journaling and really going inside, that's partly what the walking for me is in the morning, especially when I'm able to do a little barefoot circle around the park across from my house. It's a meditative time for me. It's a time for me to come inside and see what's going on and how am I feeling, and, you know, if there's any parts of myself that I need to talk to or engage with or reassure or comfort, it allows me that opportunity. So again, I'm starting my day from a place of like openness and purity and groundedness in my purpose and what I'm here to do. The process of unlearning a fast-paced, career-focused lifestyle is challenging. It has taken a long time for me. You know, I pulled out of that experience in 2020, and 3 years later, I'm still like, I feel like I'm just kind of figuring out what really works for me. And it's a lot about making sure that I'm coming back here. It's a lot about really protecting myself and guarding myself from the stuff that's out there. Not because I don't want to have any contact with it, but because I know I need to have some clear separation. I need to know where I end and like that world, the external reality begins. Because in my past, it was just way too enmeshed, and I lost myself again in like all those pieces of who I was supposed to be per social conditioning, per colonial expectations. And so I think about this process as like a reclamation of self process as well, because I'm reclaiming myself, I'm reclaiming my sense of self from a lifetime of not having been able to be my true authentic self. And I believe that's just a product of growing up in the colonial era. For myself, being a descendant of colonizers, I've had to really totally shift my cultural relationship to who am I, and to really disconnect from the culture that was prescribed to me at birth, the colonizer culture, the colonial culture. And that's like an active process. That's a complicated path to walk, because I still live in a colonized society. I still live in a colonized culture. There are aspects of me that are absolutely still colonized. And yet I'm really intentionally, consciously walking a journey of decolonizing myself. And so all of these practices, all of these rituals, all of these ways that I'm prioritizing my healing and feeling good in my body and feeling good in my experience as a human, to me, that's all part of the decolonizing process. To me, that's all part of the reclamation process of taking myself back, taking my sense of self back from the ways that it had been stolen from me, which is like complicated and can be confusing, because one of the main ways it was stolen from me was through that people-pleasing aspect, was through the way that I was kind of socialized to defer to authority figures and to look to other people to tell me what it meant to be a good person. And so that's really subtle, and it's a lot of my own internal expectation and internal self-talk and internal beliefs. Like, I was reinforcing colonialism for myself. I was colonizing myself by self-oppressing, even though it was something that I had been taught, even though it was something that I had been socially conditioned to do. So yeah, I find a lot of it is reworking my relationship to self, reworking my expectations of self, reworking the ways that I move throughout my day. It's kind of like two parts. It's in part creating a world that actually allows me to go slow, creating a life for myself that actually allows me to go slow, because that has taken a lot of work to get to the point where, you know, I've chosen my living situation so that I can afford to live on a very low income. Even though I have savings, this helps me not have to worry about making money or working more hours or getting another job or anything like that. So I'm able to protect myself and have a slow life by choosing a lifestyle that allows that, by choosing a place to live that allows that. Not just in terms of the money, but I'm in kind of a rural area, so it's a much just slower way of life. There's, you know, less people around. I have a lot more nature that's surrounding me. So part of it has been the long, winding journey of literally creating a physical reality that can support and sustain my needs. And the other part is the internal piece, the giving myself, ooh, honey, are you okay? You hit that table. Are you okay? That was too narrow of a jump for you. Okay, honey. Okay. She's very particular. Yeah, the other part of that is the internal stuff, is giving myself permission to live a slow life. It's reworking the value systems and the expectations that I have for myself, so that I'm redefining what does it mean to be successful? What does it mean to be productive? What does it mean to work? By doing the internal work of redefining those experiences for myself, that's how I give myself permission to again step into a slower way of life. Whereas Amy circa 15 years ago might have had some judgment about the way that I'm living now, definitely would have had some internalized judgment about like, oh, I'm being lazy, I'm not doing enough, I'm not like achieving enough, I'm not being seen as a success by, you know, these people who previously their opinions really mattered to me. That's been, I don't know, like I want to say that that's been almost as hard, just as hard as the creating of the physical reality piece, because it's just been unlearning such really deeply ingrained messages of self. So yes, as the seasons change and my routines are going to change as well, and I'm just reflecting on where I'm at and what's been helpful for me, and what does my life look like right now, and what does like a slow, sensitive day, a sensory day for me look like. And it's just a lot about making sure that I'm carving time and space out to be in my body, to be a human. That work isn't the priority, that being on my computer and like doing the things isn't the priority. That's like a part of what I do in my day, but it's only a part, and there are just as important other pieces that help me continue moving forward and achieving my goals and becoming who I want to be, while also healing myself, while also helping my body recover and be strong and healthy enough to do the things that I want to do. You want to go under the covers, sweetie? Yeah. I'm gonna go under the blanket. This is her winter routine. You have to be a warm little kitty. But it's this stuff, like this is what helps me feel like I'm a human in the world. I'm not just like a productivity robot. I'm living to live, and work is sometimes a part of that. I am not working to live. And as someone who previously identified completely with my career, like that was my main identity, was my career, was work, that's a big shift. And I believe that's been really instrumental in my healing process.